So you guys are probably wondering what the hell I've been doing for the past week or two. I haven't uploaded anything to YouTube. And what did I fall off the face of the earth? Well, no. I've been working on one ginormous project, a huge project. Something that I've been wanting to do for 5 years. It's a big one. And you'll notice my aquarium is no longer sitting right there. Where did it go? Living room looks a little different too. Rearranged it. But it's not just that. I'm going to move the camera slightly to the right. And you'll see what I've been doing. Ooh, what's this? What the hell? A random wall in the middle of... What? And where did that come from? What have I been up to? I have been busy like a freaking beaver. And no, that's not a sexual joke. I have moved the aquarium right here against my new wall, which is... Wow! Counter space! Nice! That's right, folks. I now have 6 linear feet of counter space, in addition to the paltry 18 inches my condo came with. This has not been changed yet. This actually, I have a whole new countertop for this. I just need to put it in. That'll be a small project. I'm just gonna have my dad cut the sink opening for me, and I'm gonna do the rest. But I did all of this by myself. All the paint, the woodwork, construction, drywall, trim, all of it, electrical. I did it all myself. It took me about a week and a half to finish this project. Start to finish. And let me tell you, I ran into quite a few issues. This is the first major carpentry project I've ever undertaken. And it's quite solid. Oh, whoops, back into my own stove. It took a lot of work. I had to not only think this out, but I started brainstorming this about 5 years ago when I bought the place. And the problem was I had to make a choice, or make a decision. I had to figure out if I was going to go ahead and replace all of my cabinets and countertops, because they are old and they don't make these anymore, at least not commercially available. I can still buy them new though, anyway. Or if I was going to keep the existing cabinets and find a set of matching cabinets to add on to the, without having a mix-match kitchen. Well, I planted the seeds early on. I contacted a few people I know who have these cabinets. And I said, if you ever plan on replacing them, please call me. I will buy them from you. Because what I wanted to do was exactly this. I wanted to build an island or a peninsula. I ended up doing a peninsula. The other problem I had was I didn't have any drawers. These are just false fronts. So, no place to store cutlery or anything like that. So that's why I had a rolling cart thing here that used to hit the fridge, used to slam into it whenever I opened it. It wasn't very convenient. So I had to find cabinets. It took me almost 5 years, and I found them. The cost savings of just adding these cabinets and not having to replace all of them, we're looking at over $1,000 in savings. And I also like these these cabinets. I like the way they look. They match my floor, they match my walls and the woodwork. I love them, and they're bright. Because in a house like this, it is a very dark house. And having white appliances with white cabinets is definitely a benefit in my opinion. And they don't really make, they make white cabinets, but the paint is so cheap on them that they tend to look bad after a few weeks, or months if you're lucky. And then I had to pick out a paint color scheme. So I started early on. About 3-4 years ago, I picked the color scheme that I wanted for my living room and kitchen area. It didn't include this color though. It was basically neutral earth tones like that kind of grayish, greenish color that I used on that wall. And I was going to stick with white for the main walls. I did repaint all of these walls downstairs. I did it over this weekend, and it took me an entire gallon of paint. I got 2 coats over all the walls to make it look good. This now this color is called Praline Cake. It took almost 3 coats to get this to come out right. And at first, I was a little hesitant. I wasn't really sure I liked it. I started painting over here, and I wasn't feeling it. And I almost went ahead and gave the paint away to somebody I work with and almost bought another color. When I showed some pictures to a few friends and family, and they said, you know what, it looks good, do it. And once I painted this wall, a much more creamier white. It was originally like a pure white. A little bit like that up there, which is going to stay that color for now. Once I saw this color with the creamy white, it really started to look good. And then once I got the cabinets and countertop in place, that's when it started to come together. I stuck with stained pine trim because that is what the house was originally built with. I've got that nice wide pine board going up the stairs, and all of my baseboards are 4-inch pine trim, stained. I believe the original color was like I think it was like walnut or something like that. I don't remember what the color was, but I stuck with that basic color, and you know, I did it that way. This is done intentionally. I wanted to protect the corners from impact, and the easiest way to do that in my experiences, which is very limited by the way, is to use pine boards, because when they get nicked you can just touch them up with stain. Now if you hit a drywall corner, you've got to bring out the spackle, you've got to bring out the paint, and it's just a nightmare. This is my first real drywall mudding experience. I've never done it before. It wasn't that bad. I looked at some online how-tos and tips and tricks, and actually Your Beekeeper's video on drywalling an apartment he was working on was very helpful. So thank you, Your Beekeeper, if you happen to see this. Check out his channel too. The guy's pretty cool. He does all kinds of cool stuff. Anyway, all the wood, all the trim, I cut with a miter saw, chop saw. Came out pretty good. I got this came out killer. I love how this came out. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of a nick where the blade didn't quite... See, the blade didn't go all the way through at an angle. I had to flip the board and then keep cutting, and I must have hit it wrong. Burger Bank will hide that. I actually had quite a few cabinets to choose from. I could have gotten more, but I didn't want to, you know, over inundate my kitchen with cabinets. I was going to take there was a bridge that would have gone right up here, kind of like this, only with 2 doors, like that. I was going to put it in, and I thought against it, because I really don't want a million cabinets up here. I've got enough now. I mean, now I have a food pantry where I didn't have one before, which I have to fill up with food. It doesn't have much in it right now. But now that I have this, I can actually make larger shopping trips. And now that I have drawers here, I can now have a junk drawer, which I've never had and I've always wanted. And now I can stock up on dish rags. I had no place to put dish rags. So you know where I put these? I was storing these in my nightstand. Seriously. Now I have an empty drawer just for stuff that I have lying around, which is great. I've got enormous storage for pots and pans, which I now can start acquiring stuff that I didn't have room for before. And So now I have room for that stuff. And in here, I now have room. I can now stock up on paper towels, which I go through a lot of. And I can store my appliances, my lunchbox when I'm not using it. Oh, I meant to put this on the counter. I gotta clean those out, by the way, they're dirty. But that was supposed to go on the counter. I never got around to it. Electrical. I have 5 outlets here, which is still within code. They're 15 amp. They should be 20 amp. That's 20 amp. As you can see, I had to actually replace these outlets. Yeah, I had to replace them because there was no GFI outlet here, and there's supposed to be. It's within 3 feet of a sink. So I had to install a GFI outlet, and while I was there, I just swapped out the faceplate and the other outlet. And why doesn't that GFI outlet have a 20 amp notch on it? It is a 20 amp. I could have sworn I bought a 20 amp GFI. Whatever. Didn't have it before. Whatever. Put this nice lighted light switch in. Tell me I didn't put the 20 amp over here. No, I didn't. Okay, good. Anyway, so these are all GFI. And because I have them daisy chained, the fish tank is finally on a GFI outlet. And I think it should be. It's a wet location. So now if I trip this GFI, the fish tank shuts off. And has a nice handy light to tell you it's been tripped. Anyway, my perpetual motion machine, which isn't really, it just requires water, a lot of water. Yeah. So there you go. That's what I've been doing. And I'm going to add a bit of footage on how this all went down. And you'll get to see what I went through. I'm going to speed it up so that way you don't have to deal with all the nonsense. Oh, you got outlet here, outlet there, and an outlet here for the fish tank. So there you go. Oh, I also did some more work. I painted the bathroom. New shower curtain. And new brushed bronze, oiled bronze, sorry, fixtures, but fittings there and there. And I'm going to do something with this bathroom fan. I'm going to replace the motor in it. I'm going to buy a rebuild kit or a motor kit, and I'm going to put a new motor in it. It's a shaded pole Fasco, but any shaded pole motor from an exhaust fan will work. The motor's just getting noisy, and I have to run it with a shower because there's like no ventilation in here. But I gotta give this another coat. That'll be this weekend. Touch up the trim a little bit. I kind of rushed through this because I wanted to get a move on. And I did one other thing. One more thing. Like Steve Jobs. This is my utility closet. This is where my counter is being stored for now. Just an ordinary utility closet. Now, I don't know if I ever shot any video of this before, but my water heater was just sitting there unprotected and wasting space. So I decided to make the most use out of that space as I can. With this, I used this is all done with leftover scrap material. Everything is leftovers. Oh, there was water in that bucket. Dear Sally, dear Sally. Anyway, what I did was I took those 6-inch boards that I bought, that I mistakenly bought and I couldn't use, and I chopped them up and I made a shelf that goes all the way back. And I took some trim boards and I finished it up a little bit. And then I took my drywall that I had left over and I slapped a coat of white paint on there, and I put some access panel style edging and screw guards. And so I edged the entire board in those little plastic or nylon, vinyl, whatever edging that protects the cut edges of the drywall. And I screwed it in place with 4 screws, so it's easy to remove for adjustments or replacement of said water heater. And problem solved. I now have storage in here. It looks clean, it looks finished. And if I ever rent the place out, I don't have to worry about the water heater getting smashed into by whatever. Which is not going to happen anytime soon. But there you go. And that was all done with scrap. That took me about 2 hours to make, with all the staining and screwing and cutting and all that. I also gave this closet a nice, well-deserved coat of white paint. Now the white paint was left over from when I moved in. When I moved in, I bought 2 gallons of Walmart Generico plain white semi-gloss and painted the downstairs, the bathroom, basically everything except for the upstairs. And the paint just didn't wear very well. It didn't look good. I only did 1 coat. I just slapped it up just so that I could get moved in. I didn't even paint up here, and I just figured that out. I didn't even paint up here ever. It was original paint to the house. There were no signs of it ever being repainted. Go figure. So there you go. There's 20 minutes almost. There's 16 minutes of yeah. So now you get an idea as to what I've been doing, and why. And I'm not going to bother videotaping the counter replacement. You basically see what it's going to look like. You saw the countertop in there. Put 2 and 2 together. Voila. I have nothing else to show you. Holy God. That's it. Well, I just realized, why is that not a 20 amp GFI outlet? Or maybe it is. It doesn't say so. But 20 amps should have that little thingamabob right there. That's curious. One minor flaw here. The way they wired this is kind of funky. And I verified this with an electrician friend of mine. Actually, my uncle. And he wasn't really sure. But if I trip this, the kitchen light shuts off. It's actually wired on the same circuit. There are 2 20 amp circuits coming to this point. So the kitchen light is off of one, along with 1 outlet, and that light is off of the other one. Curious. I don't know why they would do a thing like that, but anyway. Actually, that's not even within code, because I believe the 20 amps have to be single, or not. I don't know. I should check into that. The code changes all the time, so you never know. The place was built in '86, so God only knows what they've changed since then. But I can finally use my kitchen table for eating purposes, where it was only a catch-all before for everything that should have been on the counter. And froggies need to be fed, so I gotta feed these little guys. Don't I? Huh? Yeah, I do. Anyway. One of the reasons I wanted to move this away from the sun, well, obviously, away from the sun, because it encourages algae growth. And what are you, hungry now? Yeah, the sun causes algae to grow rapidly in aquariums. And the tank is already clearing up. It looks pretty good so far. I have to build up new biological filtration because I just changed out my biofilter prematurely and I didn't do it properly. So while I was building all this, all my water started turning like yellow. It was nasty. So I luckily had the time to drain the tank and move it before those little guys got sick or whatever. So eventually the biofiltration process will commence and the water will be crystal clear once again. I can't wait. And the water started to smell pretty funky too. So a combination of drywall dust in the air, sun beating on it, and lack of maintenance because I was busy with other things, the water just started looking really bad. but it's good now. Everybody's happy. And I'm going to end this video right now. Good night. Before we get into the process of how this kitchen was turned from this into what you just saw, I should tell you that my kitchen was practically useless when I moved in. This is what I had, what you're looking at it. You know, I had no counter space. I had a rolling island that was being hogged by a microwave, and not much else. You know, this project, as I said before, was about 5 years in the making, and all it took was me to find a set of matching cabinets to make this possible. And here's another shot of the kitchen. This is standing in the living room looking towards the front door. Obviously, I've made several changes to not only the decor of the place, but to the floor. As you'll see in the next shot, I have a video of the floor being put down. I mistakenly purchased a tile that was discontinued, and it turns out that I couldn't get any more of them, and I was about 20 tiles short. So after redoing the floor the first time, I had to rip it up 2 days later to put down what you saw in the earlier section of this video, which is the checkerboard pattern. In my case, it worked out in my favor because the pattern that I had originally chosen, which was only chosen because it was 15 cents a square foot, was actually kind of hideous. And this is it. Look at that. Ugly. Total crap. So what we have here is a pile of lumber that will be turned into a wall. And I'm now showing you the raw materials I have to work with. There's my drywall. Look at that. Ain't that great drywall? Awesome. Here are the cabinets. They're just set there in place for demonstration purposes. Well, it looks like I framed the wall. It's all basically loosely sitting there. It's not anchored to the floor yet, which requires concrete anchors, which will come later in the project. But this is the basic wall before final reinforcement and anchorage. Have to cut back the floor so that it can be anchored to the concrete slab permanently. And we have another angle of the wall. As you can clearly see, it's not much more than some sticks. And we have the cabinets with the countertop not installed yet. I had to reinforce some of the cabinet framework because they were being pulled apart from being moved from one house to the other. What you don't see is that the cabinets were modified to fit on a sagging floor, where the rear half of the why am I moving my hand like that? Anyway, where the bottom of the cabinet is actually cut at an angle. So I had to shim them up a little bit so that they fit my level floor. And I'm just babbling on and on here, blah blah blah, this and that, and probably talking about, I don't know what I'm talking about, maybe weather balloons or something. But looks like I'm really intently focusing on some issue. I don't know what. But nevertheless. And we've started marking off the floor. Peeling it back, I cut the carpet. Now that's good carpet right there, it was. And we got the carpet removed at this point. And I'm waving my hand like a madman. And you can see a shot of the old tile. If you right there. See it? Pink, ugly, nasty looking stuff? That's what my floor was covered with before. At this point, I'm going to insert a picture of what the kitchen used to look like right about now. Look at that. Anyway, it looks like somebody spilled some paint on this concrete slab probably about 20 years ago. Probably drinking some PBRs. He's painting the walls there. You know, that's just what they did back in those days. And, oh look, another shot of the cabinet frame. Beautiful. And we've got some electrical boxes mounted. I've got them marked off. And I had to cut into the wall right there so I could pull the... Why didn't I move away? I'm talking, you jerk. Anyway, I had to pull the wire out of the old electrical socket and then cap the socket off because it's empty. And I had to run the wire up into the new wall. At this point, the wall is anchored to the floor and to the adjacent stud. Very important that the wall is anchored to a stud. You don't want it to be, knocked over. That is the old light socket, electrical socket, that I had to block off. And it is now vacant. There is nothing in that socket anymore. And in this shot, we're going to see, oh, look at that. I patched the wall with the old piece of drywall. Thumbs up. Good job. And later in the project, I'll be mudding around that so that it, is somewhat sealed up a little bit. Got some wire dangling there. I ran most of the wire through. And not sure if it's in the next shot, but I did end up adding 2 more sockets. There's in this shot, no, it's not there. I added 1 socket below the one on the far right, and I added a socket to the end cap of the wall. And then you can clearly see those in this shot. See, there's that light socket I was telling you about. The drywall is basically screwed to the studs. Has not been mudded yet. And at this point I realized that my wall isn't perfectly square. Unfortunately, I used a hand saw to cut all of my studs, so they weren't all perfect. Another shot of the newly cut in. Oh yeah, I left some toys on the wall for future generations to find. Burger King toys. Yeah. And this is the cabinet. I think I had just rested it in place. I don't believe I've nailed it or screwed it down yet. Oh, okay. Cabinets are installed and are removed again, sorry. And I'm now mudding the corners. I had to cap off those 2 leads. Those are live. And that they're actually feeding my living room. At this point, I had mudded the screws. You can clearly see that. I had probably put like another coat or so on that stuff. I didn't do the corners yet. We'll get to that. They were a nightmare. I used the wrong materials, but I cheated. You'll see in the you already saw how I did them. I ended up doing them in wood. That way they're more durable too. Anyway, I've mudded the corners again. This is like my second coat. And didn't do such a great job on that. Again, don't ever use those paper steel corners. They suck. This is the cabinet that I mounted on the wall in its final location. I aligned it so that the top of the cabinet is at the same height as the rest of the kitchen cabinet. It's not the bottom, the top, because that cabinet is a few inches taller than my tallest existing. Take the level here, and we're going to see how level that new cabinet is. Oh, look at that. That's about as plumb as an apple. What the hell did I just say? Alright. First coat, praline cake, kitchen and bathroom paint. At this point, I wasn't really certain that I liked the color, but I was willing to roll with it. I took some pictures, brought them to work, and my coworkers seemed to enjoy the color. But there we go. That's what the sample looks like. And I actually saw it in matte originally. And the paint that I purchased was gloss because it resists stainage and drips and stuff. It's in a kitchen. I kind of liked the way it looked in matte more than I liked it in the actual finish. But live and learn. And we're just babbling on. I didn't paint to the floor because it's not necessary since I'm installing cabinets. And it's a good thing too. I was pretty short on paint. We've got the corners all mudded and sanded at this point. There we go. Look at that. At this point I also have the end splashes adhered to the wall. I use construction grade adhesive for that. That way they don't, they can't fall off or anything. Now, the next thing we're going to do is put a bead of clear caulking around every crack and seam. And that's very important because if you don't do this, if you're washing the countertop, or you spill some liquid while making something and it winds up in that crack area, it'll get into the wood and expand it. I've got those trim boards all stained. I had to bring them all out there and I put a nice coat of stain. Woke up early to do that. There's my microwave that I actually mounted above the counter or the cabinet. Oh look, a moth. Hey there, little moth. What you doing? Huh? And we've got some wiring done. I installed my 15 amp GFI outlet. I actually ended up moving that outlet to the other side and putting a dummy outlet right there because you only need one GFI on the circuit. So that would have been redundant having two. And yeah, look at that, wires, wires. Oh look, a drawer. Nice. I finally have a place to put that rolling pin I never use. And the end. Hope you've enjoyed. Have a nice day.